Hello everyone, my name is Qureshi and I want to welcome you to Unfolding Destiny, where we teach you how to build your life within the context of your true identity. In the previous video, we referenced 3 frameworks that taught you the psychology of why products and brands go viral, how they become contagious, and how you can make your product, your marketing, your branding contagious as well. In that video, I referenced Nir Eyal's work, which is the hooked model using TARI. I referenced Jonah Berger's work, Contagious. And I referenced the Octalysis framework by Chou. In this video, we're going to go more deeply into the Octalysis framework so that you can figure out how to gamify your experiences, whether they're product-based or marketing-based or anything in between. It's important to understand how to gamify your work so that you can have the best experience possible that people keep coming back to. So this here is the Octalysis framework. It's by Chou. There's multiple levels to Octalysis. Yukai says that there's at least 5. In this video, we're only going to talk about the 3 primary levels. And you can get very far with just these 3 levels alone. So let's start with level 1, which is the Octalysis framework itself. Now, I'm going to talk about these 8 bullet points over here. There's 8 parts to Octalysis. Technically, there's 9, and I'll talk about the 9th in a moment. But let's talk about these 8. This here, if you look at this octagon, this is the Octalysis model. I'm going to talk about the octagon a little later in the video because there's a reason for its shape. But for now, let's just talk about the 8 core drives and let's figure out what they mean, and maybe you can figure out ways to apply them to your own life and to your own branding. This stuff is very powerful. So I think you're in for a great treat, a great ride. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number 1 of Octalysis is epic meaning and calling. So when you design your systems, you want to make sure that they align with the deeper desire for us to become bigger and better than ourselves. If you take a look at the 1984 commercial by Apple, you'll see what I mean. In this commercial, you see a mass of people huddled around in some sort of an auditorium. It's not really the prettiest scene. They're in these rows. They're all painted blue in a way. They seem tattered, and I think most of them are bald, and they're just kind of sitting there and they're looking at this speech that's given to them by a dictator on this big, massive screen. And suddenly, out of nowhere, there's this woman who comes in and she has like this big mallet, this like huge mallet in her hand, and she comes running into the auditorium, and there's this fleet of cops right behind her chasing her down. It's like the SWAT team. They're trying to get her to stop, but she's got this hammer, she's got this mallet, and she's swinging it, and boom, she lets it go, and it hurls, it spins and spins and twirls, and it suddenly hits that screen in front of everyone. It breaks the screen, and suddenly everyone is unchained. The brainwashing is over. And Apple ends the video with just this one message saying, don't let 1984 be like 1984, something to that effect. They were referencing the novel 1984. But their whole thing was, when you join Apple, you're no longer part of the masses. You're no longer brainwashed. And so having something that appeals to meaning and calling, it gets people to want to join your movement because they want to be part of that as well. Number 2, development and accomplishment. When you're designing your system, your product, your brand, you want to include things like badges, awards, level ups. And it's not the fact that you're giving them these motifs, these things, these ribbons or whatever. It's the meaning behind them. It has to be tied to a sense of accomplishment. You don't just level someone up just to level them up. You level them up because they put in hard work. Fitbit does an incredible job with this, because with Fitbit, you actually get to measure your weight loss, your muscle gains, and all that type of stuff. And over time, when you hit certain milestones, you get certain awards that you can share with other people. So you need to make sure that you have meaningful accomplishments and developmental growth built into your system. Number 3 is empowerment and creativity. You want to give people a multitude of options as to how they may carry out a certain mission. Just going one path isn't always the greatest. The reason why games like chess and checkers and Go are so timeless is because they give people an infinite way to play within the confines of their rules. So you are giving the user choices to make along the way. Very empowering. That's why people also love Legos. So in the case of what you're designing, if you can have multiple ways for the person to reach a goal, it's going to be a more engaging user experience. Number 4 is ownership and possession. So if you give someone the ability to make an avatar, if you get them the ability to grow certain aspects of their own world within your world, they're more likely to feel as though they have some sort of like stake in the game. And because they own it, because they have some stake in the game, skin in the game, because they have some skin in the game and some stake of ownership, they're more likely to value it and keep nurturing that growth. This is why Farmville is so popular, or was popular. I've never played it, but you get these crops, you want to tend to them, you want to make sure that this is your farm, this is your land, and you want to make sure that it doesn't wither away. So you're going to keep growing it, you're going to keep watering your crop, you're going to keep nurturing whatever you've got going on so that it still continues to grow. So ownership and possession is huge. Number 5 is social influence. So if you can have mentors, if you can be involved with other people, if there's a group, a community that you're a part of, well, you don't want to let your mentor down. You don't want to let your group, your team down. And so you're going to stay involved just so that you can show them that, hey, I'm still part of this. I'm still aligned with this bigger mission that we have going on. If you can connect a person to multiple people and show that person that there is something bigger at stake here, that you're all together, well, now you're part of the group. And that's very powerful. Number 6 is scarcity and impatience. Now in the previous video, I actually wrote importance on the board. That was a misspelling. I meant to say impatience. Scarcity and impatience is very important because in terms of that, you don't want to make anything too accessible. You don't want to make it so that it's easy to access whenever you want. You got to put certain constraints and restraints within your system. That's the only way people are going to truly value it. So I'll give you an example. Happy hour only happens around 4 or 5 p.m. And during that time, you get discounts on drinks or meals or whatever. You don't have that throughout the entire day, because if that was the case 24/7, then the bars and the restaurants wouldn't make as much money. But by limiting happy hour to like an hour or two throughout the day, you can get more traffic into your establishment. Scarcity and impatience is also a way for you to I'll give you another example, right? So in Farmville, I believe you have these torture breaks. And on Tinder, if you're not paying for the system, if you keep swiping right, swiping left, eventually your meter runs out and then you're locked out for 24 hours. That's scarcity. Now, what can you do? Well, you can wait 24 hours or you can pay the $15 a month and now you have unlimited swipes. So by implementing scarcity and impatience and touching the part of the person's brain that deals with impatience, you can really make your user experience go that much further. Also, this can get pretty mischievous if you think about Farmville. If you don't cater to your crops every few hours, if you don't tend to your crops every few hours, what happens? They tend to die and wither away. And you don't want your crop to die, so you're going to keep going back at it, okay? And so the next one is unpredictability and curiosity. That's another thing. You don't want every action to yield a predictable reaction. In one of my videos, I talked about Newton's laws. It was the very first video about the second video with Einstein and the relativity thing. But in that video, we talk about Newton's laws, and one of his laws is every action has an equal and opposite reaction. You don't want that to be the case inside of a gamified environment. If every single action yields an equal and opposite reaction in the gaming universe, then you have something that's completely predictable and reliable and dependable, and suddenly there's boredom. So when you're dealing with unpredictability and curiosity, you really want to more like a slot machine metaphor. So with the slot machine, you keep putting money in there and you hit that little lever, and sometimes you win, oftentimes you don't. Oftentimes you lose, and you might lose small bits of money, you might lose a lot of bits of money. But in terms of that slot machine metaphor, the fact that you have the possibility of winning, that is what pushes you forward, and that's what makes you want to keep going to it. But if every time you pull that lever you got like a quarter, you would get bored. You'd be bored out of your mind. Suddenly that intrigue is gone. And so with that slot machine metaphor, you want to figure out what are ways that you can incentivize your users for maybe playing your game or being involved in your user experience without constantly rewarding them every single time. Maybe every 4th visit they get a token or a coin, or maybe every 7th visit they come to your store they get a coffee or whatever. Or maybe it's every random visit. So maybe 10 visits later they get a coffee, maybe the next time it's the 3rd visit in. So you want it to be variable. Number 8 is loss and avoidance, which really, it can be applied to everything. Now this is another one, which is, it can be pretty brutal, and you don't want to misuse this. Loss and avoidance is, so we fight to keep that which we may lose. So if you're in a video game and you have 1 life, and if you die during that mission, then you got to start back over, you're going to be more careful with how you carry out your mission. You're going to try to avoid certain enemies. You're going to try to avoid being hit. Things of that nature. Now with Farmville, once again, the whole thing was if you don't tend to your crops, you lose your yield. What Yukai recommends is you don't want the loss to be so significant that you lose everything. It's not like if you die during a mission in your video game, suddenly your entire game is deleted and you start from day 1, mission 1, chat bubble 1. No, that would be infuriating. It would do a lot more harm than good. In the real world, instead of just firing an employee for one bad action, you can kind of just write them up or give them a warning, things of that nature. As a matter of fact, when it comes to loss and avoidance, micro punishments are more effective than huge seismic punishments. So maybe in the case of a game, for a certain action that was improperly executed, you can punish the person by taking away like a 2 to 5% amount of growth from that person. Maybe you take away some of their tokens or some of their health points, things of that nature. But you don't want to fully decimate them. And so if you take all 8 of these, you've got something here that can be very powerful in regards to your own branding, your own ecosystem, and everything else that you're creating. Earlier, I mentioned that there's actually 9 drives. And so what I want you to understand is that the Octalysis framework is mostly psychological. It's inside your mind. It's designed to create a system that has people, I hate to use the word, but addicted to it. But in a good way. If you design it in a way where it's beneficial for the person as well, then they can grow through it, and suddenly that addiction is actually a good thing. It's like you can be addicted to drugs and that's bad, but you can be addicted to working out and eating healthy. If you create a system in which you're rewarded for working out, and then there's loss and avoidance tactics and techniques for when you skip the gym, then you're probably more likely to work out. So you can spin this in a positive way. But there is a 9th drive as well, which is physical sensation. You might not see it on the camera, but it's okay. 9th is sensation. Sensation is the idea that when you get a massage or when you do things with your body that make you feel good, that does trigger dopamine, rewards it triggers serotonin. It makes you feel really, really good. It elevates all these different chemicals inside your brain, sometimes oxytocin, which they say is the love hormone, the love chemical, and dopamine, serotonin. All of these things come together and you start to feel really good. That's why when you run, you get that runner's high. That's why when you work out, you feel good. So your endorphins are running. And so with sensation, the thing is, if you can somehow create a way to have the person feel physically good when they're engaged in your activity, then that can also yield great results. So that's why drugs are so powerful, and drugs are also really bad and they destroy you. But as far as the sensation they give you, people want that sensation. And so Octalysis, once again, is a psychological thing. It's really hard to design a user experience that deals with sensation. I'm sure with virtual reality that might change and things of that nature. So you don't have to worry too much about sensation, but just realize that it is one of the hidden drives. Chou calls it the hidden drive. And don't just worry too much about it, but just know that it does exist. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just erase this board and I'm gonna move this octagon up. And we're gonna dive a little bit more deeply into the second and third levels of Octalysis. All right, so just give me a moment and I'll take care of it. Okay, I've got the board prepped. This is a deeper dive into the framework, level 1. So now I've got this octagon, this Octalysis framework drawn on the board. It's bigger so you can see it up front and center, but there's some additions to it. Let me break this down. So when you take a look at this Octalysis framework, you'll see these 8 drives on here. There's meaning, empowerment, social influence, unpredictability, avoidance, scarcity, ownership, and accomplishment. The way Chou breaks this down is he says that the top half of this consists of your white hat drives. The bottom half is your black hat. Now, it's not to say that one's good and one's bad. No, it's just, I guess if you look at it from a behavioralistic psychology perspective, it's just negative and positive, right? But that doesn't mean good or evil. It just means different types of reinforcements, okay? So in this case over here with the white hat, you are dealing with like the good feelings. They're more so reward based. They feel really, really nice and warm and fuzzy on the inside. The black hat are more so, I don't like to call them punishments, but they're ways to get the person to do what you want by putting in some sort of loss tactic, some sort of scarcity, things of that nature. So with this being white hat, this being black hat, what you'll see is that meaning is white hat, WH. Empowerment is also white hat. Social influence is also white hat. Unpredictability goes to black hat. It's like the slot machine metaphor. Scarcity, right? Black hat is also avoidance. So if you put in certain avoidance measures, that's also gonna stimulate some sort of activity. It's gonna make someone realize how rare this is, and it's gonna make them want to have more. Same with scarcity as well. That's also a black hat. Scarcity means that there's not enough of this to go around, so you gotta just hope that you get an option and get a chance to have it as well. Really good marketers do this. They'll have a sale. It'll be like a flash 24-hour sale. Once that 24 hours is up, you can no longer get access to that sale. Now, could they give you access to it after the fact? Sure. But it's not typically a good idea. And the reason for that is that if they give you access to that, then it's almost like they're teaching you that, oh, well, the rules don't apply. That, okay, even though we had the sale and it was for 24 hours and it was up that entire time, you decided that you didn't want to play by our rules. Now you want to go according to your own time frame. And in that case, I mean, if the guy, if the girl, if the person's really nice, you can still accommodate them. But I'm just letting you know that these are black hat for a reason, and these are white hat for a reason, and they go really well together. When you can mix black hat with white hat, you've got something really powerful. But if you take a look at the left and the right side of the Octalysis framework, you'll also see left brain and right brain. So the left brain deals with extrinsic motivators and drives. So logic, analytical thought, ownership. These are more so reward based. So if you give someone a free coupon every time they shop at your store, or if you give them a certain reward for whatever action that they take, that's an external motivating factor. The right brain is intrinsic, so that deals with creativity, self-expression, social dynamics. So with the right brain, when you're dealing with intrinsic drives, you're actually dealing with something that's far more valuable. You see, you don't want to use rewards just willy-nilly. You don't want to just make them so abundant that that's how the entire system works, because then What ends up happening if you take away that reward, then suddenly you get a lot of demotivation. The person who was first motivated to try out your system before you gave them the rewards is now going to feel even less motivated after you take the new rewards away. So you want to do your best to design your system to be as intrinsically focused as possible, where the reward is the system in and of itself. It's the fact that they get to be creative. They get to express themselves. They get to meet with friends and different people and collaborate. It's like a game of chess. The reward is the creativity. And of course, winning as well. But it's not like you get paid tokens and coins and stuff like that. It's not like you have badges and all these other things when you're playing chess. Now, of course, if you're in a competition, that's a different story altogether. But the game in and of itself is quite rewarding. And that's how you want to think about your system. Intrinsic more so than extrinsic. But using extrinsic sparingly can be quite powerful. So every so often, maybe once in a while, you have a reward or so. That's powerful, but not every single day. Okay, got the board prepped. Now let's just talk about level 2, which is the phases of the journey. See, you don't want to treat your entire user experience as just one user experience. You don't want to treat your product as one experience. You want to break it down into 4 phases. The first one is discovery, then we go to onboarding, scaffolding, and end game. Discovery has to do with everything that they've done to figure out why they should even try out your experience. Discovery happens before they've actually gotten into your product. So maybe they saw an advertisement somewhere, maybe they read something on your website, maybe they read a brochure or they heard of something, but something got them to want to try out your experience. This is similar to the trigger analogy in Near EL's model, Hooked. Anyway, with discovery, you're just really figuring out, why should I even try out the experience? Within the discovery phase, you can put in things like unpredictability and curiosity. So in this case, maybe there's like a special promotion you put out there. Maybe there's this intriguing commercial. You know, Steven Singer does a really good job at this. It's I hate Steven Singer. You see that on every single billboard and you don't know what it is. So that curiosity makes you want to go and look it up. And then you realize what exactly this whole thing is about. But that's your discovery. Once you've discovered the ecosystem or the brand, the very next thing is onboarding, where you learn the rules of the game. Now it's like you're figuring things out. You're learning what can be done, what cannot be done. Maybe someone brings you into the ecosystem and kind of shows you what's what. Similar to the Matrix, where Morpheus pulls in Neo. He pulls him out of the Matrix into the real world and he tells him what's what, and then he breaks down what the Matrix is. And now Neo's learning all the rules of the Matrix, and then he realizes eventually that there is no spoon, but I digress. In onboarding, you can put in things like development and accomplishment. So as you're learning the rules, you see certain experience points go up, you see certain rewards, you see that there's actual measurable growth along the way. In the third part of the journey, you have something called scaffolding. Scaffolding is really just the journey of repeated action towards a goal. So now you're playing the game regularly. And with that, you can have things like social dynamics in the play. So with social dynamics, the whole idea is that now you're involved with other people are part of the mission, you're working together. Now you've got badges that you can share with other people, show off, tell them what you've got going on, leaderboards, metrics. Now you're involved and you're getting active feedback on your progress and everything that you're doing. So it's really, really motivating. And then finally, you've got endgame, which is your way of retaining your veterans. So what keeps the best of the best want to keep coming back for more? And in this case, you can implement things like scarcity and impatience, which is core drive 6. With scarcity and impatience, you can make it so that certain things are withdrawn if they don't play, and loss and avoidance if they stay like unplugged for a few days, then they start losing certain things. Like in Farmville, you lose your crops. So you want to make it so that at this point, the veterans are already invested in the ecosystem. They've already played a lot. This is why the World of Warcraft was so addictive, is because you spent so much time growing up your brand and your armory and all that you don't want to see it wither away. So you keep playing. Now, part 3 has more so to do with player types and fields. We're not really going to get into player types, but what I will talk about is this. You can pretty much, if you know your ecosystem that well, then you can know the different types of people playing inside of it. You can break them down demographically and segment it, and you can know how different types of character types respond to different types of stimuli, and it can get pretty powerful. And fields of applicability simply means that, look, Yukai says that this isn't just video games. He didn't spend 10 years working on this just for it to work in the field of video games. No, gamification can be applied across a broad spectrum of fields. Here's 4. So yes, you can gamify a product. We've already talked about that in the past half hour. Yes, gamify a product. But there's also workplace or workspace gamification, which is where you can put in certain gamified rules within your workplace, within your establishment, to make it so that it's a better workplace, better place to meet people and get work done, right? So you can have certain competitions if you want. You can have certain rewards. You can have social levelers. You can actually take all 8 of those drives and put them within your workplace and increase motivation and productivity. You can do the same for your marketing. Now you can talk about your 8 drives and apply them to social media, branding, advertising, things of that nature. And then finally, your lifestyle. So you can apply the 8 drives to your personal fitness, so you can start working out better, start eating more healthily. You can apply them to your relationships and a bunch more. So I hope that this served you. I hope you learned a lot. Now, this is the Octalysis framework. It's a nice dense book. It's pretty thick, and there's hundreds of pages. There's lots more information in that book. I kind of just scratched the surface here. If you were to go even more deeper, or if you were to go more, further into the system, what you would see is that every single drive has a bunch of different examples behind it, and you start to learn how to implement each specific one into your own overall framework. So it's a fascinating book. I recommend that. If you're willing to sit down and just read something that's kind of dense, maybe this is the way to go. It's written in a way where it's conversational, but just remember, there's a lot of information in it. But I hope it does serve you. Now, if you did find value in this video, what I would recommend, or what I would ask is, please, for one, hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. That's the way you can be notified whenever there is an update, and also increases the likelihood that other people will also see my video. Go to my website, unfoldingdestiny.com, subscribe. While the Rules of Legacy poster is still available, go ahead and download it. It's free for you. Share this with your friends and family, and let me know what you think. All right, thank you guys. Take care. You have a great one.